the West is split on Ukraine. There is a clear division on what one side wants and what the other does not, in regard to the war itself. The French president, for example, is scrambling to find a war to become the Napoleon for peace. He has been at it for some time now. And a British leader finds this, quote-unquote, nauseating. Case in point, a recent podcast by Guto Hari. Who is he? A former Downing Street Director of Communication. And in his podcast, Hari recalls the time the former Prime Minister Boris Johnson called Macron nauseating. What for? Traveling to Moscow, before Russia fired the first shots. In fact, the podcast says, and I'm quoting now, there were tensions early on when people like Emmanuel Macron of France went to Moscow to talk to Putin. I think Boris described it privately as nauseating. And meanwhile, I think Macron was feeling the tension from Boris seemingly doing the running with helping Ukraine militarily. Now, this was when Johnson was still the Prime Minister. He is now out, Sunak is in, but Macron is still not done throwing political hand grenades. You see, not too long ago, he visited China. Like we were telling you just yesterday, Macron is now trying to strike a secret deal with China's Xi Jinping, trying to become party to China's peace proposal. But the question is the rest of Europe or even the United States on board with this idea? It looks like Britain seems more focused on arming Ukraine. The US is rallying countries trying to punish Russia. Listen in to what the US President Joe Biden had to say in Japan.
For the shared values, including supporting the brave people of Ukraine as they defend their sovereign territory and holding Russia accountable for its new aggression.
Accountability versus the peace deal. And the West seems undecided. What does Ukraine want is the immediate question. Like we've been telling you, China has sent an envoy to Kyiv to try and get Ukraine on board for the negotiations to end the war. And this envoy recently held a meeting with Ukraine's foreign minister, Dmytro Kuleba. And following the meeting, Kuleba said that Ukraine does not accept any proposals that involve the loss of its territories or the freezing of the conflict. Pretty much along expected lines, of course. What isn't, though, is the fresh Russian offensive. After the intense firefighting in Bakhmut was over, analysts were almost convinced that the next round of the offensive will be led by Ukraine. But Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said the country does not have enough arms to launch a counteroffensive. But guess who does? For the last few days, Russia has been raining fire on Ukraine. Kyiv has been repeatedly attacked. It was attacked 9 times, in fact, in the last 18 days. The capital city was attacked last night as well. So was Odesa, the port city. Russia says it has hit all targets. Cruise missiles were fired from sea, air, and the land. Russia also deployed Shahed drones. Ukraine says most of the missiles were shot down, and yet this is what Odesa looks like today. At least one person was killed in the attacks, 2 others were injured. Why is the attack on Odesa critical? Because of this city's location. Like we were telling you, Odesa is a port city, and the attacks come the night after the Black Sea grain deal was extended by 2 more months. A lot of the ships leaving Ukraine under this deal pick up food and fertilizers from Odesa. On paper, Russia has agreed to not let the war hamper this export. In reality, though, it is raining fire on a city critical to the supply chains. So what really should one make of this? The West could have answered this had it not been so confused itself. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the updates on the move.